You think waiting makes you stronger? No, it makes you invisible. You convince yourself that patience is wisdom, that silence is strategy, that maybe if you hold back long enough, life will hand you a perfect opening. But here's the raw truth. While you sit in that prison of hesitation, time is slipping, moments are passing, and someone else might already be taking the step you were too afraid to take. You think standing still keeps you safe, but in reality, it erases you from the possibility of ever being chosen. Because when you hesitate, you don't just pause, you vanish. That's the wound hesitation leaves behind. It robs you of presence. It makes you blend into the background, no longer a man of intent, but just another face she can't read, another voice that never speaks, another presence that never declares itself. And here's the part you don't want to hear. She notices. She notices the silence, the lack of certainty, the way you keep swallowing your words and pretending you're waiting for the right time. She sees it, and every second you think you're protecting yourself, you're actually teaching her something dangerous, teaching her that maybe you don't care enough, maybe you don't see her clearly enough, maybe you're not bold enough to step into her life with clarity. What you fail to realize is that hesitation isn't neutral. It doesn't keep things steady. It sends a loud message, one you don't even hear, but she does. It tells her, I don't know if you're worth the risk. It tells her, I'm afraid of losing more than I'm willing to win. And no woman on this planet is inspired by that message. You tell yourself you're waiting because you're calculating the right move, but what you're really doing is hiding behind excuses, hiding behind the fear of rejection, hiding behind a fantasy of perfect timing. Meanwhile, she's waiting, not for perfection, but for presence. And here's the brutal truth that burns. While you're sitting in hesitation, she's not sitting in the same chair. She's moving through her days, meeting people, experiencing life, wondering if anyone sees her with the clarity she deserves. Every moment you delay is another moment you prove to her that you don't. You think she's confused about what she wants? No, she knows what she wants. She's just waiting to see if you'll rise to the standard of a man who acts, instead of shrinking into the shadow of his own doubts. You can dress hesitation up with fancy words, call it patience, call it wisdom, call it making sure. But strip away the disguise and you'll find nothing but fear. Fear that she might say no, fear that you'll feel exposed, fear that your heart will be rejected. But here's the irony you refuse to face. The very rejection you fear is easier to recover from than the suffocating weight of regret. Regret doesn't fade. Regret doesn't heal. Regret whispers to you in the dead of night, what if? And you have no answer. The strongest illusion you've built is that waiting keeps doors open. But waiting doesn't keep doors open. It lets them close quietly while you stand on the other side, convincing yourself you still have time. Meanwhile, the moment that could have defined your courage slips away unnoticed. You may tell yourself that she should just know how you feel. You may convince yourself that your actions... So remember this, she doesn't crave hesitation. She doesn't crave second guessing. She doesn't crave a man who hides behind excuses. She craves decisiveness. She craves action. She craves the certainty of being chosen without hesitation. And if you can't give her that, don't be surprised when she stops waiting for you to finally decide. Let's hit you with a shocking truth. The fear of rejection you're clinging to is already hurting you more than rejection itself ever could. You've built rejection into this monster in your head, a nightmare so terrifying that you've convinced yourself silence is safer. But silence isn't safety. It's slow death. Silence eats at you from the inside. It robs you of peace. It leaves you lying awake at night, replaying moments, wondering what could have been, asking yourself questions you'll never answer. That's not safety. That's torment. Rejection is sharp, but it's quick. It's a cut that heals. You bleed, you hurt, you move forward. But hesitation? Hesitation is a wound that never closes. It festers. It lingers. It whispers to you every single day, what if? What if you had spoken? What if you had tried? What if she had been waiting for you all along? That's the weight you carry when you choose hesitation over action. You don't escape rejection. You choose regret. And regret doesn't fade. Regret is permanent. Here's the harsh part you don't want to admit right now. By saying nothing, you're already experiencing the very thing you're trying to avoid. You're already rejected by yourself. You've already failed by default. Because the opportunity is slipping, and the silence you choose becomes its own answer. You've told yourself you're protecting your heart from pain, but the truth is, you're breaking it yourself by not giving it a chance. Let's break this illusion wide open. You believe rejection will crush you, but it won't. Rejection will sting, yes, but it will also free you. It will give you clarity. It will give you the truth. And with truth comes power. You can move on, you can grow, you can take that lesson into the next chapter of your life. But hesitation gives you nothing. It's empty, it's limbo. It leaves you stuck in a cycle where the pain never ends, because you never gave yourself a conclusion. You can survive a no. You cannot survive the weight of wondering forever. That's the reality. The men who grow, the men who thrive, the men who earn respect, they are the ones who are willing to face rejection head on, not the ones who let fear dictate their lives. Do you think she admires the man who hesitates forever, or the one who takes the risk, even if the answer isn't what he wanted? Respect always goes to the one with courage. Attraction always follows decisiveness. Weakness never wins. And here's another truth you've been avoiding. She doesn't need you to be perfect. She doesn't need a flawless plan or the perfect words. What she needs is to feel your conviction. What she needs is to feel the raw truth of your desire for her, unfiltered and unapologetic. That matters more than any yes or no, because even if she says no, she'll never forget the strength it took for you to step forward. But if you stay silent, she'll never even know who you really were. Stop telling yourself rejection is the worst case scenario. It isn't. The worst case scenario is living with the ghost of what if haunting you for the rest of your life. The worst case scenario is watching her walk into someone else's arms knowing you never even tried. The worst case scenario is realizing too late that rejection would have hurt less than the endless ache of regret. So hear this clearly, the fear of rejection is a lie. It's not rejection that destroys men, it's hesitation. Rejection is a teacher. Hesitation is a thief. Rejection builds you. Hesitation breaks you. Rejection may leave you wounded, but hesitation leaves you hollow. And a hollow life is no life at all. You think you're waiting for the perfect moment. That's the lie you've been clinging to. The excuse you keep polishing so it looks noble instead of weak. You tell yourself timing matters, that maybe tomorrow will feel easier, that maybe one day the fear will vanish and the words will flow effortlessly. But let's rip that lie apart right now. The perfect moment does not exist. It never has, and it never will. There is only now, and what you choose to do with it. Everything else is a trap your mind built to keep you comfortable while your life slips away. Every time you wait, every time you tell yourself you're not ready, you've already chosen. You've chosen cowardice. You've chosen hesitation over action, fear over courage, regret over clarity. That's the brutal truth most men never face. Waiting isn't neutral. Waiting is a decision. A decision to lose by default. A decision to let the fear of what might happen outweigh the reality of what could happen if you acted. Think about how many times you've told yourself, not yet. How many times have you looked at her, felt the weight of everything you wanted to say and swallowed it back down? How many times have you silenced yourself with the lie that tomorrow will be better? And yet tomorrow comes, and the fear is still there. Tomorrow comes and nothing has changed, except the opportunity has grown colder, the distance greater, the chance smaller. That's the poison of waiting. It convinces you that later will save you, but later only robs you. Here's the reality. Courage doesn't show up on schedule. Confidence doesn't arrive like a package on your doorstep. You don't get stronger by waiting, you get weaker. Every day you delay, you train your mind to hesitate. You reinforce fear, you make indecision your habit, and habits become destiny. If you can't step forward now, what makes you think it will be easier in a month, in a year, in 5 years? It won't. It will only be harder because you will have practiced avoidance for so long that it becomes who you are. The perfect moment is a myth, but courage is a choice. And it's a choice you have to make in the imperfection of reality. Maybe the words will stumble, maybe your voice will shake, maybe you'll feel fear grip your chest. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you acted. What matters is that you stood in the storm of fear and didn't let it silence you. That's what she respects. That's what she remembers. Not polished timing, but raw courage. Do you know what women truly notice? It's not the man who delivers a flawless speech at the flawless moment. It's the man who is willing to risk imperfection because his conviction is stronger than his fear. That's the energy that makes her feel chosen. That's the energy that makes her believe you're real. That's the energy that separates you from the countless men who waste their lives waiting for a moment that never comes. Waiting feels safe, but it's a slow execution. It kills opportunities one by one while convincing you that you still have time. But time doesn't pause for your fear. Time doesn't care about your excuses. Time doesn't hand you second chances because you were too afraid to take the first one. And when the moment passes, it's gone. You can't rewind it. You can't replay it. You can't beg for it back. So let this truth burn into you. There is no perfect moment. There is only the man who acts and the man who waits. One earns respect, one loses it. One takes the risk, one avoids it. One builds a life of clarity, one drowns in regret. And the difference between them is not timing, it's courage. You're standing on the edge of two paths. One leads to action, clarity and growth. The other leads to hesitation, excuses and regret. And every second you wait, you're already walking down the second path. Stop lying to yourself. Stop waiting for a signal that will never come. You don't need a perfect moment. You need to decide. And if you can't do it now, then when? Here's the mindset shift you've been avoiding. Stop asking yourself, what if she says no? That question has been chaining you down, poisoning your courage and turning you into your own enemy. Every time you replay it, every time you let that doubt echo in your head, you make fear the driver of your life. But flip the question and watch everything change. Instead, ask, what if she's been waiting for me all this time? What if the silence you've been protecting yourself with is the very thing that's been breaking her down? What if the only thing standing between you and the life you want is a single sentence you've been too afraid to say? Do you see how much power that shift carries? Suddenly hesitation isn't safe, it's the enemy. Suddenly action isn't scary, it's necessary. When you start asking the right questions, fear doesn't look like protection anymore, it looks like a thief. And that's exactly what it is. Fear steals your moments, fear steals your chances, fear steals her belief in you. But when you reframe the question, fear is exposed for what it is, the wall between you and everything you've ever wanted. Think about this. The version of you who stays silent is already losing. He's already missing opportunities, already drowning in doubt, already convincing himself he's unworthy. That version of you dies in hesitation. But the version of you who acts, even if the answer is no, he's alive. He's courageous, he's growing, he's respected by her and by himself. And the only difference between those two versions is the question you let control your life. The small shift from, what if she rejects me, to what if she's waiting for me, forces you to stop focusing on loss and start focusing on possibility. And that's where power is born. Possibility fuels courage. Possibility drives action. Possibility makes you realize that staying silent is actually the most dangerous choice of all, because silence guarantees nothing. Action gives you everything, a chance, a truth, a moment that defines you. You've been training your mind to expect the worst, but what if the best is sitting right in front of you waiting? What if she's been hoping quietly for you to step into your role and show her that you see her the way she deserves to be seen? Do you realize how devastating it would be to let fear rob you of that? To let hesitation ruin a connection that was already within reach? That's the price you pay when you focus on if no, instead of what if yes. This is the mindset shift that separates men who live fully from men who live haunted. The haunted ones always imagine rejection, always imagine pain, always imagine failure. And so they hesitate, and in hesitation they create the very failure they feared. The men who live fully, they imagine possibility, they imagine victory, they imagine what could go right, and that belief fuels them to act. Even if the answer isn't what they wanted, they leave with truth instead of torment. Stop letting the wrong question dictate your future. The fear-driven question keeps you trapped. The possibility-driven question sets you free. And freedom is where courage grows. Freedom is where attraction thrives. Freedom is where you finally stop being invisible and start being undeniable. So burn this into your mind. What if she's waiting for me? Let that thought light a fire under you. Let it push you past hesitation, past doubt, past excuses. Because once you see through the lie of fear, hesitation can no longer control you. You realize that the only real mistake is silence. The only real failure is never trying. And the only real tragedy is letting the moment pass while she was waiting for you to step up.